Man, you come right out of a comic book.
Pulp to Pixel Media.
Exploring the media multiverse of geek culture.
He meddled in things eventually.
Hi, I'm Gotham Sharan, creator of The Last Earth, science fantasy comic strip. You can find online on Instagram and at my website, www.pulptopixel.com. All right, so week 10, starting with panel 37. This is finally me getting into the action of this story. There's been a lot of exploration, a lot of like mood and tension building, hopefully some tension building. And now, we come to the comic books for the action. So time to, show my chops, as it were. So we're getting our first battle with a, cave monster. Originally, so again, I'm always going for the toy aesthetic and using that sort of as the original seed. And this was going to be one of the Inhumanoids. I was actually when I originally drew it, I drew it exactly like that model of the Inhumanoids, but eventually I wanted to really push the design a lot more to be a little more Lovecraftian. I was thinking a lot of like the elder things. So it looks like it may be like reptilian, but it's kind of like almost like plant-based even. But yeah, this is kind of this sort of cave crawler. I need to come up with a good name for it, right? So that will definitely be one I'll develop over time. But I kind of also like a little bit like the trash compactor monster on the Death Star, all tentacles and coming out of nowhere. And we'd seen hints of this. If you caught that in previous panels, its silhouette was in the background, specifically during the bridge collapse. And then just in the last week, as he was starting to decipher this lock, this sonic lock that he's trying to break through. And this is during the research. Now, one of the things I wanted to I don't know if I'd had a chance to talk about. So here's the full reveal. And I hope it turns out. I wanted it to be very kind of like this weird snakes and tentacles and eyes, and yet like a Venus flytrap for a head. And this, again, I always struggle as I am learning to letter. I sometimes don't want to add dialogue or lettering, but it's been so important to build the character, of Steelheart and Alpha Red, and specifically their relationship and how they talk to each other, as this sort of way to kind of comment and have thought balloons without commenting and needing thought balloons. And so I, wanted to put it in this warning, and I'm kind of doing this repeating joke, which you'll see in the next panel of that text. But yeah, so this is not only is we getting into one of the big action sequences of the episode, as it were, but also really took some time, like I said, in design, and pushed myself. The text effect you're going to see, the lettering effect on the sound for a sound effect for this monster, I kind of just hit upon. I'd done it previously on a previous work, and I really like this effect. I really like using. One of the things you'll probably notice is that one of the ways I like to use speed lines is, or these sort of like action lines, as I like to think of them too, is that I often like to have them coming out of sources of light or sound. So where either the sound is coming from, and you'll always usually find them one point's perspective focused on like the source of the sound, usually when you'll see them. So that's one of those choices, and then here, see, so you're seeing me trying out. I want to get that sort of frayed effect, and I'm doing as much as I can to avoid using pre-generated texts. The only exception I would say is the machine language, which is in binary. That we saw that the hologram from the sort of door guardian popped up. That one was text. I just used a font there, but for the rest of it, Alpha Reds and Sir Steelhearts, it's hand done with a grid. So for this panel, I actually am very, very, very happy with this panel. Specifically, the head and the mouth of this monster. I really feel like I pushed the detail in a way, and I'm happy with that lighting effect, that filling the background with those lines. I've been looking at. I just got at my local used bookstore. Just got a Jim Woodring book, and so I'm just looking at, and I just got a lot of Robert Crumb recently. I'm looking at just how much they do with just these black lines and filling in that space. So trying some for effects like that as much as possible. But action sequence, and hopefully here with the dialogue we see a little bit of a thing too. Now, just another behind the scenes on the dialogue. So I write the dialogue on top of the square version of the panels. Remember, I have a square and I have a long version of each of the panels. And the square version is the one that ends up on Instagram. So I do the lettering for that first, and then I move it over to these. So you'll notice in these, sometimes I'll have the lettering and the speed drawing. You won't see the actual process of lettering because it will have been done on a different file. So, and I kind of am going to leave those out for now. I might include those in the future. I honestly, there's a couple of times I make these egregious misspellings, and I'm just like, nobody needs to see that. Nobody needs to see that. So there we go. This is where you'll notice too, this is where I'm starting to try to so I've had a portfolio review from Dan DiDio at this point, and he was really kind of pushing me on the fact that I'm not pressing in enough on my figures, that they're still kind of far off, and you're not getting the depth right and stuff. So I really took that to heart, and I've been kind of I'm trying more and more to press in. I'm kind of obsessed with drawing the whole figure at the moment because I'm still sort of developing my style that I want to try to, make the easiest for me to produce this on the schedule of 4 panels a week with, these videos to go with them. And so, I'm trying not to overdo it. I don't need to, use less lines. And so it's it is a tough one. But like I said, I was saying about the face though. I really enjoyed this, and so I really wanted to push this more, and I feel I really got it with this one. I can't decide if I like the square or the long panel more, especially after I shrink this down a little. I drew it full size, but then the black line is the actual safe area for printing, so I want to have it there. And I do like having sometimes that white outer border. I'm very much leaning towards printing this in a manga format size. So we'll see how much I would have to get done. It'll really depend on what the final page count turns out to be for the series. I'm just now putting together the next set of pages for in the actual multi-panel manga version of this. So I'm still working on those. I was up to 13, 14. So I'm hoping to, break into 20 by the end of this month. If not, then definitely by the end of next month. And I'm actually excited too. I've already started the thumbnails for the months of August and September. So I'm getting all the thumbnails, and I'm trying to do my thumbnails. Oh, see, I fixed it. I'm trying to do my. Oh no, you're gonna see some of my. Oh, you know what? This is one of the ones I think I did on the page here. Yeah, okay, so you're gonna see some of my probably egregious misspellings. Oops. I forgot I had done that there. But yeah, so, well, you can see a little of the process that I do. I have a grid. You can't see that I use a grid of like 25 point pixel grid. Oh, okay, so this is panel 40, and this is what I would refer to as, this is the money shot of the week. Or at least this was my intent. This is also, there's two things going on in here. First, I'm breaking from the formality of a single panel. And you'll see me working it out here with these circular patterns, you know? So I use the light source to create these circular shapes around where I want to draw and put detail, and then I'll know where to put the spotting blacks for the outer design. And I wanted to use that effect to produce basically two panels in the single panel. So, I'm starting to now play a little more with time or move time faster by having more panels within a single panel, so there's more action going on. So I'm gonna play around with that a lot more. Also in the next week, you'll see that I'm also gonna be playing around with a little more of the shape and formatting of the panels themselves to start expanding what I can do in sort of drawing more now towards the manga version that I'll have that much more wider page to work with. But yeah, so this one here is, I gotta say, I went through a lot of iterations on Steelheart's weapon to what it should look like. And I had like laser swords, he had a laser axe for a long time. I had all these different versions. I could never kind of really sort of hone in on what's his weapon. And then I really wanted, though, like an energy sword. Wear my influences on my sleeve. Thundar the Barbarian is a big influence on this whole series. Like the kind of the Jack Kirby over the top. And, my liberal use of Kirby dots here. I do love that I have that brush in there. But this is the ignition of the Sun Sword. This is the Flaming Sword. This is the He-Man, I have the power. Because you'll notice the shape looks like the Power Sword. And not quite intended at first, but I leaned into it as I went. What I originally imagined is this fork. The hilt that he carries looks almost like a fork. And I always liked that Jack Kirby would have these characters, specifically like Black Bolt. I think he did it on a few others where they have this like little like fork on their forehead. I always thought that was a really cool thing. And I kind of imagined that as some of the aesthetic I was going for. But, this is the energy sword, his power saber as we got there. And, lightsaber, power saber. So we'll see here, too, I added this new effect, too, where I'm kind of going to track the percentages of energy, use that kind of like as a way to build a sort of almost like a timer, or hopefully build some more tension that way. So we'll see how that works as a technique. All in all, though, I was really happy with this final page, and the next set of the next 8 panels are really proud of. Some of my best, I feel like I've done up until this point. So I honestly really can't wait to show them off to you next week. So this is, so I haven't had a chance to talk a little about my layering. So the generally way that I like to layer these is, so I'll do a pencil layer at the bottom in blue, so I don't have to change the opacity of it, and I can still see the details pretty well. Then I'll do another layer of inks. I'm using usually the Belgian ink brush that is in the ink category. Almost exclusively using that as the tool and just changing its width. I really like that one, the line it gives me. I use the pen tool though when I do the text, for the most part, or like when I have to rule out borders and stuff. So this one is, oh, look at that. Yeah. But so I'll have the ink layer then using those above that. And then usually between the ink layer and the pencil layer is when I'll have my screen tones, and I'm using very standard screen tones. And then the final layer that I'll usually do below the screen tones is I have a watercolor brush on Adobe Fresco, and it's really nice. It works like watercolor. You have to actually click a dry the layer section. So I use that as black ink at low opacity to really very thin sort of coatings to give basically ink wash to it. So it's, so black and white, ink wash, screens. And, kind of using that as my palette to work with. Thanks again for joining me on my art process journey as I create my comic strip, The Last Earth. You can follow me on the web at www.pulp2pixel.com and on Instagram and Twitter at pulp2pixel. See the show description for links to my LinkTree, my merch store, and donation site. See you next time when we return to the distant future of The Last Earth.